Assembly, where we're taking political reactions around the medium-term budget policy statement. And our first guest is Mr. Steve Swart from the ACDP. Your impressions on this maiden speech by the Finance Minister?
Well, we know the Minister of Finance had very little fiscal space to move. And so what we believe he announced today will hopefully satisfy investors and credit ratings agencies. But we from our side are concerned about the spiraling debt costs and the debt service costs. This will place constraints on our public finances, but he did announce steps to address and stabilize our public sector companies such as Eskom, and we are slightly concerned about the bailouts to SAA and SA Express. But clearly there are steps that he has announced which are positive, but when balanced against what he has inherited from the Zuma administration, he has faced with a very, very difficult situation in balancing the books. We will see clearly in February's budget speech the details as to how he exactly will balance the books, but thankfully all indications are that he's not going to increase tax.
Rating agencies are looking at this as well as investors. Do you think he struck the right chords with regards to this medium-term budget policy statement?
We are hopeful that he has, because given the low economic growth that we've faced with, he has managed to address the spiraling public sector wage bill. He has managed to say we are going to address the state-owned companies, Eskom in particular, that presents the largest threat to our public finances with the guarantees. And we see turnaround strategies there. We see a new board on Eskom. We see what Parliament has done with the Eskom inquiry, and of course the inquiries into corruption and state capture. That needs to be addressed. We have to reduce government expenditure, and if that is done, we are convinced that ratings agencies and investors will invest in South Africa and will be satisfied with this plan. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Steve Swart from the ACDP giving us his thoughts around this mini budget by Finance Minister Tito Mboweni. My colleague Abra Babia is standing by for more political reaction.
Bulelani, thank you so much. With me, I have David Maney of the DA, who's going to give up some of his observations following the budget today, and the mini budget at least. David, off camera, you spoke about some things that concerned you. You mentioned SAA. Can you just elaborate on what it is that bothers you?
Well, I think what we've seen here is a full-scale budget blowout, with the fiscal deficit increasing in respect of about a few billion rand, and with national debt eventually settling in the outer year at about 3.8 billion rand. And what that means is that debt service costs in 2021 will be about 247 billion rand, which is roughly equal to what we will be spending on basic education this year in South Africa. Our public finances are now unsustainable, and that is why we believe we should implement a full-scale, comprehensive spending review in order to eliminate wasteful expenditure in South Africa.
We're going to have to keep it short. Thank you so much for your time, David. I'm now crossing over to my colleague Arabile, who will be bringing you more updates.
Thank you so much. Well, I am joined now by Dennis Dykes, Chief Economist at Nedbank. Let's immediately get into your thoughts then, Dennis. Growth projection completely halved, if not more so. Everything from debt situation, of course, even worsening. Picture clearly not a good one.
Yeah, look, the fiscal arithmetic's not great. You've got the deficit staying at 4% or above in certain cases. You've got the debt trajectory going to just under 60% of GDP at the peak. So it's, the numbers don't look great, but if you look underneath the numbers, government's managed to keep its expenditure ceiling under control. They have left it unchanged. They managed to reprioritize expenditure. So the big story, I guess, is that we've had revenue shortfalls because of weaker growth, but also because of these VAT refunds which have been held back and now have to be given back to those who it's owed to.
Yeah, the minister did say as well that I will ensure that the fiscal consolidation path stems forward and continues on this path. Does that stave away the ratings agencies?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's really rhetoric at the moment, because if you look at the arithmetic, it doesn't look like it. But fundamentally, and I think the minister understands this 100%, you actually have to have economic growth. So fundamentally, we need to get investor-friendly programs in place, policies in place that encourage people to come and create jobs and put fixed investment, new factories. Unless we have that happening, and we start to see growth rates in excess of 3%, the fiscal position is going to deteriorate and we will be downgraded. So hopefully there'll be a stay of execution, but I don't think Moody's in particular is going to be particularly happy with the numbers as they look.
Yeah. Dennis Dykes, appreciate your time. We'll let you head off as well. Getting a little bit hot out here as well. Back to Bulelani Philip.
Well, thanks so much, Arabile. We continue to digest this MTBPS statement by the Finance Minister. And now joining me is the leader of the Freedom Front Plus, Dr. Pieter Groenewald. Obviously, the maiden speech by the Finance Minister, do you think he's struck the right chord?
Well, he started by quoting also from the Bible, and that actually says that they're going to rebuild the ruins. So it is an admittance that the SA government actually ruined the country. The fact of the matter is that he didn't say really anything that positive that is going to rebuild the economy, because we have to build the economy to create jobs in South Africa. He referred to the service cost of our debt. That is 162 billion annually, going to rise to 221 billion over the midterm, which means that the taxpayers will have to pay more, and we can expect increases in our taxes coming next year. What was positive was the fact that when it comes to the Civil Service Corps, he said that there's already an overspend of 30.2 billion, which is not going to refund. So the state departments will have to see how they're going to deal with the servants in those specific departments. And therefore we say those are positive things. He has identified the problems, but he didn't really say how he's going to solve it. Let's take, for instance, the state-owned enterprises. He admits that they will have to be reconfigured, but the problem is that he is still giving 5 billion more for SAA, SA Express, and even the Post Office. In total, they get another 9.1 billion. If you look at the figures as far as the shortfall as far as taxes collection is concerned, it fell to 27 billion, which is positive, because when we had the budget in the beginning of the year, we spoke about the 40 billion shortfall. So there are positive things, there are negative things, but in the end, he has identified the problems, but the proof lies in the eating of the pudding.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Pieter Groenewald, the leader of the Freedom Front Plus. I'm going to cross now back to my colleague Arabile on the other side of the precinct.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bulelani. Well, Matthew Park joining me now from COSATU. Let's immediately get your thoughts, Matthew Parks. What is your thoughts of the budget, the midterm budget that has just been delivered?
Sure, I think we recognize the difficulty that the minister is in. The government is in a crisis, the economy is in a recession, but I think for us it's a missed opportunity. We're a bit underwhelmed. We didn't get a sense of clear specifics on how government is going to turn the economy around, take us from this recession to positive economic growth, how to create jobs. We have 1 out of 3 workers unemployed. We had hoped to hear much more from him. But how will government deliver on the job summit agreement it signed recently? How will it guarantee the stimulus package? What's the details in it? There was silence. We didn't see much meat around how will we deal with wasteful expenditure, which the AG says is about 100 billion rand. We didn't get a sense of how we're going to recover the stolen money, which is in the hundreds of billions. So we're quite disappointed in that regard. Also for us, the state-owned enterprises, Eskom, SAA, SABC, we didn't get a sense of a plan. How are we going to save those SOEs? We got an acknowledgement of the crisis, but not what's the plan to take us forward.
Yeah. We did, however, get a reprioritization of funds in order to put in a necessary investment into nearly 2,000 odd workers in the health sector as well. So that must be some set of good news.
No, sure, that is welcome. That is part of the job summit agreement. So glad they're moving towards it. But look, there's about 148,000 public service vacancies. We have not seen teachers being employed for some years. The police officer headcount is reducing. We need to fill those critical service level vacancies, and we need to see the fat being reduced on the top. So we agree with the minister that the cabinet is too large. It should be cut by 2/3. But we need to see more reduction in the wasteful expenditure at a cabinet level, reducing the perks, putting a ceiling on the amount of money that the CEOs of SOEs get paid, so we can reprioritize that towards paying for teachers, for nurses, for doctors, for police officers.
Yeah, Matthew Parks, appreciate your time there. Of course, we continue to get sentiment, some crossings through as well. I'll cross over to my colleague Abra now.
Arabile, thank you so much. With me right now, I have Professor Nhlanhla